The 7-year tribulation rapture theory is due to a misinterpretation of Daniel 9, where the church has tried so hard to replace Israel with claims the Jews killed Jesus, so they'll go through tribulation while the church is raptured. And some will miss it. How can you miss a secret? It all began with King Nebucadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2, the hair of gold. We'll start with the command. Daniel 9, verse 25. From the time the command is given to rebuild Jerusalem. Now to the commander, Ezra chapter 1, verse 2. This is a command of Cyrus, emperor of Persia. The Lord, the God of heaven, has made me ruler over the whole world, and has given me a responsibility to build a temple for him in Jerusalem, in Judah. Go to Jerusalem and rebuild a temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is worshipped in Jerusalem. Now to the Messiah. Daniel 9, verse 25, continuation. Until the anointed one, Messiah, come, 7 times 7 years will pass. Jerusalem will be rebuilt with streets and strong defenses, and will stand for 7 times 62 years, but will be a time of troubles. Jesus was born during the Roman Empire. Joseph left Nazareth with Mary, who was pregnant with Jesus, to Bethlehem to register for a census ordered by Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus. Herod the Great was king of Judea. While in Bethlehem, Mary gave birth to Jesus. This census began a Jewish-Roman tax for the Roman Empire, corrupting Exodus 30 verse 10, resulting in a Jewish revolt. The Messiah is the stone cut off without hands in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. He was predicted to die, that's why the stone comes from heaven to earth. In Daniel 7, he was seen after the fourth beast in his glory, just like John saw him in Revelation in Patmos during the fourth beast. Jesus was born, killed, resurrected, and showed himself to John during the fourth beast. Back to Daniel 9 verse 26. At the end of that time, the anointed one, Messiah, will be killed unjustly. The Messiah had enemies, Pharisees, chief priests, and teachers of the law. Jesus spoke about his death 3 times. In Mark 10 verse 33 he said, "Listen, we are going to Jerusalem where the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and hand him over to the Gentiles, Romans, who will mock him, spit on him, whip him, and kill him, but 3 days later rise to life." This was during the reign of Roman Emperor Tiberius, who succeeded Augustus. In a plot to kill Jesus, Caiaphas revealed Jesus came to die for his kingdom. John 11:49. Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said, verse 50, "It is better for one man to die for the people than the whole nation destroyed." He prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish people, not only for them, but to bring into one body all the scattered people of God. The charge of Jesus' death was King of the Jews. Mark 10 verse 2, Pilate asked, "Are you King of the Jews?" Jesus said, "So you say." John 19 verse 19, Pilate wrote a note and had it put on the cross. Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Jesus died, was buried, and resurrected on the 3rd day. After revealing himself to his disciples, he then went back to heaven where he came from, and will soon descend from heaven, riding a horse, as a stone cut off without hands in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, striking the statue at its feet, destroying all kingdoms. Returning the kingdom of Israel back, just as promised in Ezekiel, beginning the millennial kingdom. Going back to Daniel 9, verse 26 to 27. The destruction of the temple, Jerusalem, and the abomination of desolation. The city and the temple will be destroyed by an invading army of a powerful ruler. The ruler is Vespasianus, who was emperor of Rome, and the army is the army of Titus, his son. They surrounded the walls on the eve of Passover. Vespasianus sent his son Titus to Judea to end the Jewish revolt. Vespasianus was first sent by Nero to Judea, but then Nero died. After succeeding the throne, he sent Titus. Jerusalem was rebuilt with 3 strong defensive walls. The first wall with David's city, lower city, and upper city. The second wall with the second city. And the third wall with the new city. Back to Daniel 9, verse 27. That ruler will have a covenant with many for 7 years. That could have been with the soldiers in the army. They first, led by Titus, destroyed the third wall and new city. Then they destroyed the second wall, the second city, and the Antonia fortress. This is the reason why in Qumran the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. They were once called sacred books. The sacred books Jesus held, read, and taught in. In Matthew 24, referring to Daniel 9, Jesus said they should run to the hills, and those who were out of Judea must not enter. Hence John survived and later wrote a book of Revelation in Patmos Island. Back to Daniel 9 verse 27 continuation. When half this time is past, he will put an end to sacrifices and offerings. Sacrifices and offerings were stopped after the army led by Titus breached the temple walls on the 17th of Tammuz. Back to Daniel 9 verse 27 continuation. At the highest point of the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation. Meaning the abomination that causes desolation will be put or placed there by someone and is not a person. In Matthew 24, Jesus said, verse 15, "When you see standing in the holy place the abomination that desolates," spoken through the prophet Daniel. Verse 16, "Those who are in Judea must run to the hills." Verse 22, "But God has already reduced the number of those days. Had he not done so, nobody would survive. For the sake of his elect, however, God will reduce the number of those days." Meaning the 7-year tribulation was reduced to less than 7 years. Survivors including Simon Bagayora and John of Kiskola were taken to Rome. They walked through the Arch of Titus, which was built in honor of Titus' victory over Jerusalem. Back to Daniel 9 verse 27 continuation. At the highest point of the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation and will remain there until the one who put it there meets the end which God has prepared for him. This meant the abomination will remain there until both Vespasianus the ruler and Titus the army leader died. After Vespasianus died, Titus succeeded him to the throne. So what is this abomination that causes desolation? We know after 3.5 years sacrifices and offerings are stopped, which happened on the 17th of Tammuz. It is not a person, but is placed to stand at the highest point of the temple. The word abomination means something disgusting or feeling of deep hatred, often associated with pagan worship or idolatry practices. This abomination causes desolation. The word desolation means destruction, laid to wasteland or place, emptiness. What does it have to do with Vespasianus and Titus, the leader of the army? It is believed that Titus sacrificed animals to his Roman gods at the altar. He then gave orders on the 9th of Av to destroy the second temple, leading to its destruction. Thus pagan worship and laying to waste a place and land. In my opinion, the revolters were right in rejecting the Roman paganism. They were sent to exile for 70 years in Babylon due to paganism. But this time, they died rejecting paganism. There's a third temple that was revealed through the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 40. Even Revelation 11 speaks of a temple, the altar, and worshippers. The outer court given to the Gentiles who trampled in Jerusalem for 42 months. During the 42 months, 1,260 days, there will be 2 witnesses who will proclaim God's message. Currently on the Temple Mount is the Alqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock where the Jewish temple used to be, belonging to the Muslim faith, defiling the holy mount of the living God. This came about Lord George double-dealing. First with the Arabs, Sharif Hussein, the Hashemite who wanted a new state of independence for the Arabs after Mecca and Medina. Lloyd George promised him the Palestine land, state of Israel. In return, Sharif Hussein was to rebel against the Ottoman Empire to weaken it, so the British and its allies could win World War I. Sharif Hussein and Faisal went to work against the Ottomans. In the midst of that, the Jews with Russia seemed to be a threat for Lloyd George. With their connections, Lloyd George made a deal with them too. That enduring nation was killed, blamed for killing Jesus. They felt unsafe anywhere in Europe, giving birth to Zionism and anti-Semitism. They wanted their ancient homeland, Judea, renamed Palestine thanks to Hadrian, Roman Emperor. This resulted in the Buffalo Declaration. Sharif Hussein and Faisal gave Lloyd George victory in their success of rebelling against the Ottoman Empire and defiled the Holy Mount by building the Alqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock on the Jewish Holy Mount. In 1948, Israel formed a state of Israel, gaining its independence in their ancient homeland, followed by Arab wars and terrorism. The Arabs killed to have Palestine, while the Jews were killed, unsafe outside their ancient homeland. It's a war of faith. Muslim faith against Jewish faith. Allah against Jesus, the Messiah who died for the Jewish people, uniting them with the scattered tribes of Israel into one kingdom. John 11, verse 47. The Israelis have been excavating their ancient ruins, enduring the attacks of many nations, opening historical sites for tourism. Today, the church tries to replace Israel with a man-made doctrine, the 7-year tribulation with a takeoff rapture, speaking against the Jews, maybe unknowingly, referring to Daniel 9 and Matthew 24, which the Jews suffered and went through already. They rejected the pagan worship of the Roman Empire, with the cost of the city and the temple destruction and their lives. As if nothing happened, Christians killed them, blaming them for the death of Jesus. Yet salvation comes from the Jews. On the other hand, the Islamic regime wants the Jews dead. Yet it was decided in ancient times that Israel wins. Jesus is the stone cut off without hands to destroy all kingdoms and to return the millennial kingdom back to Israel. Before the kingdom of God on earth comes, the Ezekiel 40 and Revelation 11 third temple will be rebuilt on the Temple Mount.